Hello, this is National Chess Master Rats. I'm here for Team 4545 League. This is the game in Week 4 of Team Event 55 that was selected as Game of the Week. Sadly, it was the only one nominated. I'm really disappointed. Anyway, let's go ahead and have a look. Okay, the Tarrasch variation, and black takes here. Now, I'll give a little bit of background. I was aware of this line over 40 years ago when I was 17 years old and going into my senior year in high school. I picked up a bunch of chess books, and one was the best games of Siegbert Tarrasch, or Tarrasch, I don't know how you pronounce it. And he played a match with Jacques Mises, and Mises would play this exchange on E4 variation of the French defense. And I remember the commentary. Tarrasch thought it was a mistake because he surrendered the center, and Mises thought it was a good opening because it activated his pieces. His pieces could find squares. And so then the test would be what happened in the match. If you're playing this line as white or black, you might want to dig those up. They are available either in the book, or if you hunt online hard enough, you'll find them. Anyway, let's just have a look. Normally, black brings his knight out to f6, but it's going to transpose. Okay. So they just kind of go through these standard moves, and black seeks to fianchetto his bishop on c8 and break with c5. Okay. I've played against this. Now, the commentator for the game of the week, the one that selected this game, the judge, the guru, he was kind of putting this move down. I've used it in various similar positions. The idea is white's going to maneuver the bishop to c3, and then centralize the rooks, and just enjoy a wee bit more space. And eventually, if white can get the d5 pawn break in at the right time, it works out. I've won games with this plan before against this line, against players rated over 2,000. It's not necessarily a bad idea, but it has to be followed up. Let's see how it goes. And normally, like I say, there's some exchanges on e4, and they just haven't happened yet. So let's just back up a moment. Well, it's one of those cases of which rook, right rook or wrong rook. I think the rook is better going to e1 and save d1 for the queen rook. And again, white needs to complete his development. I'm thinking bishop d2 is the key move here. And again, let's get that bishop activated on the a1 h8 diagonal here as quickly as possible. There's no need to play b3 and fianchetto it. We're just going to park it on c3. So I think that would have been more prudent. Probably black is going to continue with c5. That's his theme in this position. And then white could play bishop c3, and eventually, let's just take a look. There's going to be some wholesale exchanges on this square at some point, and where are we going to put the queen? Let's put it on. Let's put it on f4 just for the fun of it in this little sample line. Okay, what's happened here? White does have some strategic ideas in this type of position. It revolves around having an outside pawn majority. That's not enough to win, but it's a way to steer the game. Eventually there's going to be some exchanges on d4 or c5, one way or the other. White's going to take or black's going to take. It might be prudent for black to take now, simply because if white takes and black recaptures with the bishop, black's going to get some double pawns. So let's just go ahead and take, and I'll try to illustrate what I'm trying to say. Okay, white's going to get eventually an outside pass pawn. Now, it's not the most outside pass pawn. It only goes, it's going to be on the c file. There was a game I did earlier, the drawn game in round 2, where White did get an outside or queenside pawn majority, and he didn't really play it right. He tried to accelerate a little too quick, and even missed a chance for the pawn on c5. C4 had gone to c5. He missed his chance to exchange it on b6, which just imagine for a moment the pawn on c4 and a7 off the board. Well, eventually when White gets a pass pawn, it's going to be far outside on the a file, and the idea is to win is to divert the black king all the way to the other side of the board to hold that pawn back, and then the white king makes an entry into the king position or king side and wins pawns. The classic example of this plan was played between Capablanca and Alyekin in their first game of their World Championship match in 1927. Alyekin achieved the outside pass pawn and won it in instructive style. So you might want to hunt that game up. It's worth looking at. But this is not enough to win. The game is even. But White has a plan here. His plan is to go into a rook and pawn ending, if possible, and try and get a pass c pawn. He could go into other kind of endings. I've defended this position before successfully in a knight ending, and black shouldn't be losing, but it gives something White to play for. The question is, when is White ever winning a position like this? Well, he's winning when black makes a mistake. The game starts out dead even. Someone's got to make a mistake for an advantage to materialize. And even if you don't have an advantage, at least you have a strategy. And White's strategy is to get into some kind of ending and try to create a outside pass pawn on the queen side and go from there. And that's basically what White should be aiming for. So let's revert back. Okay, so rook d1 and then queen c8. And White develops the bishop. There's nothing wrong with putting on an f4. You don't have to go with my plan of putting it on c3. Okay, so now White does have both his rooks developed. The game looks pretty even. White seems to have a little more board room, but black has no weaknesses in his position at all. There's none. So all White can do is just try to gradually strengthen his position, make some exchanges, and go from there. Okay, so here comes the defining point. This is now the point where White can acquire that outside pass pawn formation with the pawn majority, and he does. So now the question is to ask is, who's better? Well, the game's even. No one's better. But as I explained, White has a plan here. The plan is to trade some kind of pieces and get an ending where that outside pass pawn can deflect the black king, allowing the white king to penetrate on the king side. But black has plenty of resources between now and then. Okay, let's have a look. So the exchange is fine, and h3 turned out to be the losing move here. You just got him in a bad way. What can we suggest for White here? Well, let's take a quick stock. White's got his development complete. Maybe a good idea is to play bishop b1 here. This gives the rook some activity. It also maybe has some potential to swing the queen over to c2, and maybe if White's lucky, he can generate some kind of a mating attack. You got to get rid of this knight on f6. Well, we have ways to do that. The bishop can attack it, and let's just take a look and see what does black do here. Well, let's see. Maybe he tries queen c6. That ties the white knight down. Okay, if the white knight moves, white gets checkmated. So we can't have that, right? Okay, knight e5 can't even attack the queen. We get mated. So how's white going to deal with that? Well, let's see. Let's put the queen on c2. Now we're trying to checkmate black. Let's see if he cooperates. Okay. Oh, look, we got a pin. Okay. Now White has some serious threats here. Bishop takes f6, followed by queen takes h7. So Black might be in trouble here, but then again, not necessarily. So, well, let's see. Queen e4 doesn't work. So I guess we're going to have to play rook takes check, get rid of the pin. Now we can play queen e4. The idea being to stop the threat down on h7, but White has some discoveries at his disposal. This one looks interesting. Queen a4 and pressure on e8, pressure on the queen. What's Black do? I don't know, queen c6. Okay, so what's White going to do? Well, he can double up the black pawns, but I think this game's about even. So it's just a possible line. But you know, how do you win games? You just play good developing moves, and if your opponent makes the mistake first, you have a chance. Let's just get to the original position. So bishop b1 was certainly a move to be considered, although White really doesn't have anything per se to show for it. The game is basically even. But h3 just allows the tactic, and now the queen, if the pawn takes, you're going to run into some trouble. Your king side is shattered, and Black has a very good game, and as a result, that's maybe what White should have tried. The guru said he looked at it and with computer analysis, and the computer actually said that this is worse for White. But the line he plays is just going to lose a piece. So I think you're going to have to bite the bullet and just take and let Black demonstrate why this is worse. So I don't know what I'm not going to bother looking at a computer evaluation and try to figure this out. But for what it's worth, White does have the bishop pair, and it's not exactly clear how Black's going to exploit it. Well, I don't know. Let's see, e5. Let's see, maybe it is clear. The queen's on h3, the pawn's on the bishop. This is enough. Bishop g3, queen takes, and there's nothing guarding this bishop on g3. See, it's pinned. The pawn on f2 is pinned. So, I don't know. But still, being down a pawn, maybe that's better than nothing. What are you going to do? You know, play here. Now Black can eat it and just come here and take a pawn. And now Black has an outside pass pawn of his own, and f4 is looking like a tremendous square for the Black knight. But I think maybe White had to try it. Anyway, he didn't. He took with the queen, and now it's clear what Black is going to do. He's going to shove that pawn up with a fork. So White tries to get a little counterplay here, and White says, okay, take my bishop, I'll take your knight, because it's pinned. The pawn on g7 is pinned. So Black liquidates that threat, and White resumes the threat on the knight. And this is interesting. Black's willing to give up the knight. What happens if White takes it? Well, wow, we can do all kinds of things here. We can play bishop takes check, followed by taking on d3, and we've got this killer pass pawn, open line for the rook. Take with the queen. We could maybe pin that bishop. Black's got a lot of happy choices here. So White came up with his own fork, which just weakens his position a little bit more. Maybe what he should have tried to do is I don't know, save the piece. But Black's got to be Black's got to be looking fine here. You know, E3, no, not yet. You know, there's just so many good possibilities for Black here. He's just got this decent attacking position. Well, we can take, you know, we can just bag a pawn, check, then take this, and now the knight's ready to go to G3. It's ready to go to F4. What does White have? Rook D7. Got a little nuisance threat down here, but Black can deal with that. You know, put the knight on F4. That's a good way to deal with it. Now you're threatening to win the queen. So, you know, it's just a Black game. Anyway, he tried G4. Now he saved his bishop. But this is a fine move, knight G3. It threatens mate on the move, queen H1. White really doesn't have a good move here. And if queen takes G3, the queen is lost because of the pin. So White tries this move, and that just allows a mate. And there you have it. Very nice attacking game by Black. Let's just go back to the point where, let's see, we're going to go back 14, looks like. And not quite. Okay, here's the point where he played H3. So he's got to come up with another move, and I was suggesting as a possibility bishop to B1. What else is playable here? Bishop to E5, that gets it on this diagonal. Although, you know, the knight can kick it, but it's just going to come back. Oh, careful. Got to go back to G3 because you're on F2 here. But it's still basically an even game. H3 was, you know, trying to get inside the psychology of a player. Why does White play H3? Is he trying to create a haven for his bishop? Well, I think the bishop was better on the A1 H8 diagonal than on the H2 B8 diagonal, because the former has a target at the end of it, the king. All this bishop does is keep Black out of B8 and C7. I'm not too sure Black needs those squares. So, you know, you want to. White's got an ideal pawn structure. You look at it, nothing is moved except for the pawn on C4. So you don't need to make pawn moves right now. The only time you'd be making pawn moves is if you were assaulting the Black king. Had White castled long here, he'd be thinking about running his pawns up the board to break open the king position. But objectively, you want to use pieces, and White's ahead and slightly in development. He's a half tempo up. The Black rook on A8 is not developed, so White can spend a tempo, and that's why I say I think bishop B1 is a decent move. And you know, but Black doesn't have anything to worry about with queen C6. I don't know. Yeah, let's see. This G2 is a problem child. Looks like it's going to give Black some compensation here. But anyway, I thank you for your time in looking at this, and I'll be making a video for the next game shortly. Take care. Thanks.